Hello everyone, and welcome to my fun ranking for Outlaws of Thunder Junction. If you're new to the series, I'm going to go through all of the 52 new commanders from the main set, commander decks, and the big score, and give you my thoughts on how fun I think they are. There are two things I look at when deciding how fun I think a commander is: the power level and the playstyle. As always, this list is subjective, so I would love to hear what commander you're looking forward to building in the comment section down below. And as always, I'll have a link to this tier list down there as well. Okay, with all the explanation out of the way, let's get into it. First up is the Unrepentant. The Unrepentant? Yeah, sure. It's a 4-mana, 5/5 legendary creature, Scorpion Dragon Rogue with flying and trample. Sack 3 other creatures. You may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield, activate only as a sorcery, and only once each turn. I want to build like a Kobold deck with this, where you're putting dragons or just other big creatures into play. Honestly, it seems fun. Next up is Flash the Veteran. This is a 6-mana, 4/5 legendary creature, human rogue with flash. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped, and whenever it becomes tapped, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. This doesn't seem like a very fun commander to me. I'm going to put it in kinda fun. For 6 mana for this effect isn't really that impactful and isn't something I'm looking forward to doing. Next up is Baron Bertram Greywater. This is a 4-mana, 3/4 legendary creature, Vampire Noble. Whenever one or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 black Vampire Rogue creature token with lifelink. This ability only triggers once each turn. Pay 1 and a black, sack another creature or artifact, draw a card. Not really into this. It's a sack outlet in the command zone, which is cool I guess, but Felix Revenant Medium is the better tokens commander, and it's 1 more mana. Next up is Bony Clearcutter. This is a 6-mana, 6/5 legendary creature, giant scout with reach. When it ETBs, create Bow, a legendary blue ox creature token with this creature's power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. Whenever you attack, draw a card, then you may put a land card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield. Notably, the land comes into play untapped, which is pretty sweet, but this is Simic doing Simic things. I'm going to put it in kinda fun. Next up is Breaches the Blastmaker. This is a 3-mana, 3/3 legendary creature, Goblin Pirate with Menace. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, you may sack an artifact. If you do, flip a coin. When you win the flip, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. When you lose the flip, Breaches the Blastmaker deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to any target. This seems like actually a really fun commander. I'm going to put this under very fun. Because it's any spell, it doesn't have to be instant or sorcery, and you get a copy of it, or it just deals a bunch of damage. So it's really a win-win on the coin flip. Obviously, sometimes you're going to want to copy it, but other times you don't really care. Next up is Bristlebill Spineswer. This is a 2-mana, 2/2 legendary creature, plant druid with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. You may pay 3 green and double the number of +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. This is not a fun commander. It's very powerful, but the play pattern is so boring, and it's just a mono-green landfall commander. If it was Golgari, at least I'd be able to play it as an Insidious Roots commander, but it's mono-green, so I can't do that. Next up is Tarl, Roving Rancher. It's a 4-mana, 4/3 legendary creature, human warrior. Oxen you control have double strike, and when it enters the battlefield or attacks, exile the top card of your library. If it's a land card, create a 2/2 white ox creature token. Otherwise, you may cast it until the end of your next turn. So this is an Ox Kindred commander, but you want a bunch of lands in the deck. This still seems really fun. I'm going to put this under fun. I don't think it's very fun, but I think building an Ox deck seems really neat. Next up is Calamity Galloping Inferno. This is a legendary creature, horse mount with haste. Whenever it attacks while saddled, choose a non-legendary creature that's saddled at this turn, and create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of it. Sack that token at the beginning of the next end step. Repeat this process once, and saddle 1. So if you saddle it with 2 creatures, I believe you can pick each creature to make a token copy of it. It has to be non-legendary. So if you have Helm of the Host, I think it makes a non-legendary token copy of it. So you could, it's sorcery speed, right? So you'd have to have this out. But you could saddle Calamity. It doesn't really do anything, but just something funny you could do. Honestly, this seems like a fun commander. I'm going to put this kind of in the middle of fun. Next up is Doc Arlock, Frizzle Genius. A 2-mana, 2/3 legendary creature, bear druid. Spells you cast from your graveyard or from exile cost 2 less to cast. Plotting cards from your hand cost 2 less to cast. Now, if we had a dedicated Simic plot commander deck, I think I'd be really into this, but there aren't enough plot cards in Simic colors to build a whole deck around. In the 99 of like a Muldrotha deck though, this card is great, but unfortunately, as a commander, it's not very fun. Next up is Aries The Beger. This is a 4-mana 4/4 legendary creature human warlock with lifelink. Whenever an aura you control becomes attached to a non-land permanent an opponent controls, with mana value less than or equal to the aura's mana value, gain control of that permanent for as long as the aura is attached to it. So I'm not really into this as a commander, because you can only get things that are the same or lesser mana value. You can't just control magic something. I mean, I guess you could just play control magic, but you can't use a pacifism to get control of an ability that you want on a more expensive creature. So yeah, I'm gonna put this under kind of fun. Next up is Aries Roar of the Storm. This is a 10-mana 4/4 legendary creature elemental warlock. The spell costs 2 less to cast for each different mana value among instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard, has flying and prowess, and whenever you cast your second spell each turn, create a 4/4 red dragon elemental creature token with flying and prowess. So you want instants and sorceries, you want to cast a bunch of spells, and you get dragons. I think this is really fun. I'm going to put this under want to build. I think I may want to build this commander. Next up is Eartha Joe, Frontier Mentor. This is a 4-mana 2/4 legendary creature core advisor. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 red mercenary creature token with tap. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. Whenever you activate an ability that targets a creature or player, copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. So when I first read this commander, I thought it was only creature abilities, but it's any activated ability that targets a creature or player. So there is some mana abilities on mana rocks. I think it's not Seer's Lantern. There's some lantern that says give target player mana, so you could actually double that trigger. And some of the skull bombs from March of the Machine, I think, or actually all V1, target a creature, then you draw a card, so you can copy that too. Seems like a very fun commander. Next up is Flipple, Lost on Range. A 3-mana 1/1 legendary creature, homunculus with ward 2. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. The top card of your library has plot. The plot cost is equal to its mana cost. You may plot non-land cards from the top of your library. This is like a future sight on a stick. The 3-mana 1 with ward 2. Nothing really broken you can do with this, I don't think. But it does seem pretty fun, so I'm going to put it under fun. I like the idea of just plotting a bunch of like 1-mana cantrips and then doing that, then casting a storm card the next turn. Next up is Felix 5 Boots. It's a 5-mana 5/4. I don't know why it's not a 5-mana 5/5. Wizards flavor fail. Legendary creature Ooze Rogue with menace and ward 2. It should just be ward 5, like, just, you know, I'm joking, don't do that. If a creature you control dealing combat damage to a player causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. I really wish they could keyword this to something, but this is a Ishin, but it's with a combat damage trigger instead of attack trigger, so it's a little worse than Ishin, but I think it's in better colors, and you're in Sultai, which is get some unblockable creatures, which is great, but you have to have them dealing combat damage. So I think Coastal Piracy, Binding of Thassa, and Reconnaissance Mission, so you could draw a whole bunch of cards. This seems like a fun commander. I'm gonna put this under fun. Next up is Fortune Loyal Steed. A 3-mana 2/4 legendary creature beast mount. When an ETB, scry 2. And whenever it attacks while saddled, at the end of combat, exile it and up to 1 target creature that's saddled at this turn, then return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control as saddle 1. So you can attack with this 2/4 as saddle 1. That's at the end of combat, exile it, and you get a blink a thing. Importantly, you can use this with like Maze of Ith, because it doesn't say it has to be tapped. So as long as you declare it as an attack while it's saddled, this ability does go on the stack. Then you just untap it, and then you can just blink like a Spirited Companion, Raven Inspector, Novice Inspector, any of those white cards. I'm going to put this at the tail end of fun. My only issue with it is mono white blink often doesn't have a very like good win condition. It isn't just some like combo pile. Next up is Geral The Flesh. It's a 3-mana 2/3 legendary creature, human warlock. Whenever you cast a spell during your turn, other than your first spell that turn, create a 2/2 blue and black zombie rogue creature token. Whenever a zombie enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it for each other zombie that entered the battlefield under your control this turn. So you can only really storm off on your turn to make a bunch of zombies, but this essentially gives you zombie storm, and I like that the storm in the background. Okay, it's not zombie storm, right? It's coming sort of kinda. Every zombie that enters, you get a counter on it for each other zombie, so it's like Giada for angels, but not on the battlefield, just once I've entered. I'm rambling. Point is, I like this card. I'm going to put this under very fun. Next up is Jared Mirror of the Wilds. It's a 3-mana 3/3 legendary creature, human shaman with haste. Non-token creatures you control have tap. Create a token that's a copy of target token you control that entered the battlefield this turn. Notably, it does have this ability itself because it is a non-token creature, and it doesn't say other non-token creature. So if you have a token that enters, like a dragon, you could play this, tap, make a token copy of it. This seems like a very fun commander to me. It's also pretty cheap at only 3 mana. Next up is Giza The Hellraiser. It's a 5 mana 4/4 legendary creature human warlock with ward 2, pay 2 life. Listen, Voja is ward 3, just give this ward 3. Or just play more board wipes and stop complaining about ward. Skeletons and zombies you control get +1/+1 and have menace. Whenever you commit a crime, create 2 tapped blue and black zombie rogue creature tokens. This ability only triggers once each turn. So you're committing a crime to get a bunch of zombies each turn, and it's a skeleton zombie lord. I love this. I'm gonna put this under... Yeah, I'm gonna put this above Geralt. Next up is Gonti Canny Acquisitor, Cant Speak. This is a 5 mana 5/5 legendary creature, Aetherborn Rogue. Spells you cast but don't own cost 1 less to cast. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, look at the top card of that player's library, then exile it face down. You may play that card for as long as it remains exiled, and mana of any type can be spent to cast it. This is a pre-con face commander. I think this is actually a really fun commander. I know I was complaining about Ariat Theft, but I don't know why I feel this is a little bit different, and the deck scales to the power level of the table, which is nice. I'm gonna put this under fun. I think Felix is a little bit more interesting for me, but I think Gonti's really cool. Next up is Honest Rustine. This is a 3 mana 3/2 legendary creature human warlock. ETBs, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Not a fun commander, it goes there. Next up is Gem Lightfoot, Sky Explorer. A 4 mana 3/3 legendary creature human scout, flying vigilance. At the beginning of your end step, if you haven't cast a spell from your hand this turn, draw a card. Again, not a great commander. This is great in draft probably and limited, but I really don't care for it as a commander. Next up is Jolene Plundering Pugilist. It's a 3 mana 4/2 legendary creature human mercenary. Whenever you attack with one or more creatures with power 4 or greater, create a treasure token. A 1 and a bread, sack of treasure. Jolene deals 1 damage to any target. So it's Gruul 4 power matters. You make 1 treasure. I don't know. I'm putting this under the top end of not fun. I don't think these uncommon legends are really that great as commanders in regular EDH. In PDH, I think it's a different story. Next up is Kavac The Punisher. This is a 3 mana 3/3 legendary creature human warlock. Whenever you commit a crime, exile up to 1 target black card from your graveyard and copy it. You may cast the copy. If you do, lose 2 life. So I actually really like this card as a commander. You can get cards like Torment of Hellfire and Exquisite Blood out of your graveyard if you commit a crime. You do have to copy it immediately, so you can't copy it later on because it's part of the resolution of this ability. But I think that's fine. I'm going to put this at the tail end of fun. I wish it wasn't a human warlock, because I want to put it in my Mikaeus the Undying deck. Or Mikaeus the Unhallowed. Mono black Mikaeus, but my rule is I have no humans in the deck. He's a human warlock. So next up is Campbell, Profiteering Mayor. He's a 3 mana 2/4 legendary creature human advisor. Whenever one or more tokens enter the battlefield under your opponent's control for each of them, create a tapped token as a copy of it. The ability only triggers once each turn. Whenever one or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, your opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. I think this card will be fun depending on your meta. I think if you have a more spiky meta like Dockside Extortionist, I think this card will be really fun. If you don't have a lot of token decks in your meta, I think it's going to be kind of meh. So I'm going to put it at the top end of kind of fun with the caveat this can go either way depending on your meta. Next up is Kell The Kid. This is a 3 mana 3/3 legendary creature, human fairy rogue with flying and lifelink. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, you may cast a permanent spell with equal or less mana value from your hand without paying its mana cost. If you don't, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. This seems like a really fun commander. I think I want to build this. So if you have a Foretell deck or a Cascade deck, you gotta just cast a permanent spell with equal or lesser mana value from your hand for free. And it's whenever. So even if it's not your turn, you can cheat things into play with this. I love this. Notably, if you can get this out on turn 2 somehow, well, I guess actually wouldn't be that hard, right? You could cast the new Jace on turn 3 technically. So yeah, that's cool. Next up is Kiri, Talented Sprout. This is a 4 mana 0/3 legendary creature plant druid. Other plant and tree folks you control get +2/+0. At the beginning of your post-combat main phase, return target plant, tree folk, or land card from your graveyard to your hand. You finally get a tree folk or a plant commander. I was just complaining last at how there were no legendary plants, and we've gotten 2 so far. There might be more. So, do I think this is a fun commander? I don't think so. I think it's cute. I love the art. I love the flavor of it. I'm gonna put it in kind of fun. In terms of flavor, I do love this card. Next up is Crom Violent Cacophony. A 4-mana 2/3 legendary creature zombie horror with flying. When you cast your second spell each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Crom and draw a card. It's fine. I'm gonna put this in under kind of fun. I like drawing cards, which is the only reason why it's not fun, but yeah, not into this. Next up is Laughing Jasper Flint. It's a 3-mana 4/3 legendary creature lizard rogue. You can give this lizard blades if you want, then it's a lizard wielding lizards. Love that. Creatures you control but don't own are mercenaries in addition to their other types. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top X cards of target opponent's library, where X is the number of outlaws you control. Until end of turn, you may cast spells from among these cards, and mana of any type can be spent to cast those spells. Honestly, this seems like a fun outlaw commander. I'll put this kind of in the middle here. Yeah, Lizard Rogue, you get to steal stuff. That's sweet. Next up is Lazav, Familiar Stranger. A 3-mana 1/4 legendary creature shapeshifter. Whenever you commit a crime, put a +1/+1 counter on Lazav, Familiar Stranger. Then you may exile a card from a graveyard. If a creature card was exiled this way, you may have Lazav become a copy of that card till end of turn. This ability only triggers once each turn. I don't think this is a super fun regular commander. I think in PDH, I was thinking of doing an Eldrazi deck with it, because you get the processors. That might be fun in regular commander as well, so I'm going to put it in kind of fun, but definitely behind Crom. Next up is Lila Undefeated Slickshot, a 3-mana 3/3 legendary creature human rogue with prowess. Whenever you cast a multicolored instant or sorcery spell from your hand, exile that spell instead of putting it into your graveyard as it resolves. If you do, it becomes plotted. So this is a commander that you want to cast Izzet spells, because if they're the only multicolored spells you can cast in an Izzet deck. This seems like it could be fun. I'm going to put it at the tail end of fun. I don't know how many multicolored Izzet spells there are that you really want to be cast and they don't have X in their cost. I'd have to look. I don't know offhand. So maybe I'll put it actually, I think I'll put it above Flipple. I like the fact that you can plot them and then cast them from exile and get benefits from that. Yeah. Next up is Loot, the key to everything. This is a 3-mana 1/2 legendary creature, Beast Noble Lord 1. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of card types among other non-land permanents you control. You may play those cards this turn. Honestly, so first off, this art is cute, and it is just a cute card. However, I don't know how good this is as a commander. So you can, at the most, early on, you can get, I would have to do the math, 5 or 6 card types among permanents you control, and you can play them this turn, but you can't cheat them into play. You can play lands, which is nice, but I don't know how I feel about this. I'm going to put this at the top end of kind of fun, which is probably a travesty, but I'd have to see this card in action, I think, to really judge how fun I think it is. Initial impressions, though, I think it's a kind of fun commander. It is really cute, so that's helping it. Next up is Magda the Horde Master. This is a 2-mana 2/2 legendary creature, Dwarf Berserker. Whenever you commit a crime, create a tapped treasure token. This ability triggers only once each turn. Sack 3 treasures, make a 4/4 red scorpion dragon creature token with flying and haste. Activate only as a sorcery. I like this with Jirid because you get to make treasure tokens or dragon tokens and make copies of them. I think that's just cool. But this is commit a crime, make a treasure. So you can make 4 tapped treasure turn cycle, and then get a 4/4 dragon with haste and flying. Yeah, this seems fun. I'm in. Next up is Malcolm the Eyes. This is a 2-mana 2/2 legendary creature, Siren Pirate with flying and haste. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, investigate. I mean, it's not a fun commander. I think it's great in the 99. I think it goes great with Breaches and all these other Izzet commanders, but I don't think you really want to play it as a commander. Next up is Marchesa the Death Dealer. This is a 3-mana 3/4 legendary creature, human rogue. Whenever you commit a crime, you may pay 1. If you do, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the other into your graveyard. So this is a sleight of hand whenever you commit a crime, which is actually pretty good. I'm going to put this in kind of fun, though. I don't know what I want to do with this command. I want to build a Grixis deck, and I was thinking of her. She feels like either a Grixis good stuff deck, or you could do Reanimator with her, or combo where you're just digging for Thoracle Demonic Consultation. Get infinite mana with Eater of Dreams or Dream. I don't remember what the card is. It's a 0 mana thing. You get to commit crimes infinitely or something. Point is, I think this is a fine commander. I'm going to put under kind of fun. Next is Miriam Herd Whisperer. It's a 2-mana 3/2 legendary creature, human druid. As long as it's your turn, mounts and vehicles you control have hexproof. Whenever a mount or vehicle you control attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it. I don't care about this card. Next up is Oca Splitter of Seconds. This is a 4-mana 2/5 legendary creature ogre warlock with menace. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you get that many additional upkeep steps after this phase. If you deal 5 damage, you get 5 upkeeps. I actually want to build this and try it out. My biggest issue with this deck is I think it's going to be built very weird by people. Like there's these ring equipment that at your upkeep you get some sort of benefit with her. I don't think those are actually going to be good in the deck, and I'm currently working on an article for her. So I'm curious what the reception of that's going to be. I think she's a powerful and I think fun commander, but she's gonna be very vulnerable, so I'm curious how this is gonna work out. Next up is Olivia, Opulent Outlaw. This is a 4-mana 3/3 legendary creature vampire assassin with flying and lifelink. Whenever one or more outlaws you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. And outlaws, I don't think I said this, are mercenaries, assassins, pirate, rogues, and warlocks. You can pay 3, stack 2 treasures, put 2 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, activate only as a sorcery. So this is essentially 5 mana, put 2 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. Gavany Township is a land, which is the same thing. I think it's 2 colorless, a white and a green. Tap the land, so it's essentially 5 mana, and you put 1. So I think this is probably on rate-ish. It is on each creature, not each outlaw, which is nice. I'm gonna put this under the tail end of fun. It's a pre-con commander, which is nice. I do really like the art, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm gonna put it under the tail end of fun for now. Next up is Rakdos the Muscle. This is a 5-mana 6/5 legendary creature demon mercenary with Flipple, flying and trample. Whenever you sack another creature, exile cards equal to its mana value from the top of target player's library. Until your next end step, you may play those cards, and mana of any type can be spent to cast those spells. Sack another creature, Rakdos gains indestructible at the end of turn. Tap it, activate only once each turn. So you can make Rakdos indestructible, that's cool. And it's a sack outlet, you only do it once each turn, so you can't just keep sacking things to make them indestructible. And you get to steal cards from another player. This seems very fun. I'm gonna put that up here. So what I would like to do with this deck is like active treason people's creatures, then sacrifice them, and then steal stuff from their deck just to like add salt to the wound if you want to be really mean. Next up is Riku of Many Paths. It's a 3-mana 3/3 legendary creature, human wizard. Whenever you cast a modal spell, choose up to X, where X is the number of times you've chose a mode for that spell. Exile the top card of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play it. Put a +1/+1 counter on Riku. It gains trample until end of turn. Create a bird. A 1/1 blue bird creature deck with flying. This seems very fun. I might put this at Wanna Build. I think I'm going to put it up into Wanna Build. So you get to just play a bunch of modal spells and get a bunch of value from it. I think you're going to want to be very selective with your modal spells. You definitely want a critical mass of them, but you want to try to only have the best ones. So next up is Roxanne, Starfall Savant. This is a 5-mana 4/3 legendary creature cat druid. Whenever it ETBs or attacks, create a tapped colorless artifact creature token named Meteorite. That when it enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to any target, and you can tap, add 1 mana of any color. You tap an artifact token for mana, add 1 mana of any type that artifact token produced. This seems like a kind of fun commander, I think. It's a combo deck. I think people are trying to use like food chain with it. If you can get infinite ways like untap the meteorites, you can do some like shenanigans with it. Honestly though, I'm not that interested in this, again, in the command zone. As a 99, I like it though. Next up is Saturo the Infiltrator. It's a 2-mana 2/3 with menace, legendary creature, human ninja rogue. Whenever it and or one or more other non-token creatures enter the battlefield under your control, if none of them were cast or no mana were spent to cast them, draw a card. So if you ninjutsu this in, you get a draw card. Plot things, you get a draw card. If none of them were cast, if you reanimate things, draw a card. This seems like a super fun commander. Put this under like here, I think. It's a ninja deck that isn't Yuriko, which is, I think, great, because I've wanted a ninja deck for a while, but Yuriko is just a little too powerful. And I think this is a good like middle ground where you get to draw a bunch of cards. Also, that art is sick. Next up is Selvala, Eager Trailblazer. 4-mana 4/5 legendary creature, Elf Scout with Vigilance. Whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 1/1 red mercenary creature token with tap. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. Then you can tap, choose a color, add 1 mana of that color for each different power among creatures you control. Seems kind of fun. I mean, it's big mana deck, so, you know, That's a thing as a commander. But I'm not sure if, you know, it's play mono green Selvala. You can do that and then you get access to white, I guess. I don't know. Next up is Stella Lee Wildcard. A 3-mana 2/4 legendary creature, human rogue. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. Tap, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Activate only if you've cast 3 or more spells this turn. So this is the face commander for the Is It Precon. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, exile the top card of your library until end of your next turn, play that card. This seems like a fine commander. I'll put this, I think, under kind of fun. Is It spells aren't like a huge archetype for me, especially like exiling, copying. I like the other one. We mentioned the second one. You get to make a bunch of dragons, which is, I think, more fun to me. Next up is Tai Wakian, the Perfect Shot. 2-mana 2/3 legendary creature, human mercenary. Whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to a creature equal to that creature's toughness, draw a card. X tap, if a source you control would deal non-combat damage to a permanent or player this turn, it deals that much damage plus X instead. So you need to like lightning bolt something. You can pay like 2 and it bolts for 5 instead. I think this is a fine commander. I don't know. I'm gonna put this like over here. I'm not that into it. I couldn't tell you why, it's just not, I don't know, just not into it. Next up is the Gitrog Ravenous Ride. This is a 5-mana 6/5 legendary creature, frog horror mount with trample and haste. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice a creature that's saddled at this turn. If you do, draw X cards, and then put X land cards from your hand onto the battlefield tapped, where X is a sacrificed creature's power. I actually have an entire deck tech on this commander. You should check out my channel for that after this. I want to build this. Gitrog is one of my favorite cards of all time. It should be no brainer that I really want to build this commander. Next up is Tiny Bones the Pickpocket. This is a 1/1 legendary creature, skeleton rogue with death touch. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may cast target non-land permanent card from that player's graveyard, and mana of any type can be spent to cast that spell. This seems like a very fun commander to me. It's not as egregious as a previous Tiny Bones. You'll have to cast the spell, and it has to deal combat damage to the player. But honestly, I think all of that's fine. No, I'm gonna put this in fun. Next up is Vadim New Blood. 2-mana 2/2. Whenever you commit a crime, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Only triggers once each turn. As long as he has 4 more counters on him, he has Menace and Lifelink. That's not very fun to me. I just don't care enough about that. Like, it's whatever. Try not the tail end of fun, but like, here. Next up is Vile Smasher, Gleeful Grenadier. 2-mana 3/2. Whenever another outlaw, Goblin Mercenary. Whenever another outlaw enters the battlefield under your control, deals 1 damage to target opponent. Again, I think this is like in PDH, I think it's really fun, but in like regular Commander, I think there are just better ways to do this. I love the art though. Next is Beyond Goldwalker. 3-mana 3/3 legendary creature, Dwarf Warlock. Other outlaws you control have Vigilance and Haste. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may have treasures you control become 3/3 construct assassin artifact creatures in addition to their other types. So they become 3/3 hasty vigilant treasure tokens. Next up is Verasa The Silencer. This is a 3-mana 3/3 legendary creature, Gorgon Assassin. It has Death Touch. Whenever a non-token creature an opponent controlled dies, you may pay 1. If you do, return that card to the battlefield tapped under your control. It's a treasure artifact with tap, sack this artifact, add 1 mana of any color, and it loses all their card types. This is a weird hate card. I think it's actually pretty interesting, because you don't get to keep it forever, it just becomes a treasure token. I'm gonna put this under, I think, honestly, kind of fun. I don't think it's like a super fun commander, but I think it's a good hate piece. Next up is Wily Duke, Anton Hero. This is a 3-mana 4/2 legendary creature, human rager with vigilance. Whenever it becomes tapped, gain a life and draw a card. Not fun, I'm sorry. It is a not fun commander. It's fine, but I'm not like interested in building this. And finally, Yuma Proud Protector. This is an 8-mana 6/6 legendary creature, human ranger. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each land card in your graveyard. Wow, crazy. That's going to be, so it's 3 mana. It's a 3-mana 6/6. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may sack a land. If you do, draw a card. Great. Whenever a desert card is put into your graveyard from anywhere, create a 4/2 green plant warrior creature token with reach. Yeah, I think I want to build this. As much as I was just complaining, it's a desert's land deck, which I think is just pretty sweet. And there you have it. There is my tier list, my fun tier list for all of Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Hope you enjoyed the video, and again, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Alrighty, I'll see y'all next time.